What's up, gang? I want to share an interesting new idea for running a website that has come to me over the last few years, but really hit home in the last couple weeks. And so let me give you the backstory real quick. So 2-3 weeks ago, I got canceled from X, which used to be called Twitter. I received a permanent suspension on my main account, Personified, at Personified. It's permanently banned. So that sucks. That sucks. And when that happens, all of your content that you created under that account is now inaccessible to the public. And that's been the case for account cancellations over the last few years. If you got banned, nobody could see your tweets. And so in 2021, the prospect of censorship and cancellation was very high under the previous ownership at Twitter. And in response to that, I built something called Focus OmniTweet, which was a piece of software that you could add to your WordPress website that enabled you to create your social media posts on your website first and then cross-post your tweets to Twitter. So the origin point for your content then became your website, a property that you own and manage and control and can't be canceled from, at least theoretically. And then the post would be posted to Twitter via their API functionality. This was a really great solution at the time. It was cool. So like you could just instead of going into your WordPress admin and then creating content, you could just bust out a post like this and then hit create and boom, here it is on your site. And then you could hit tweet and it would cross-post your post to Twitter. And you could turn them into threads. That's what this little thing's about. So I'll show you a thread. Here's a thread. You click on this. Here's the whole thread on one page. Really cool. So, I mean, there's a lot to discuss there with how this works. And I'll go into this, but the bottom line is this was a different way to handle your social media content. And indeed, it was actually better than what we have now because once Elon Musk took over Twitter, he changed the API rules and basically shut down the ability to do what I showed you here. You can't cross-post. You can't post to your website and then cross-post to Twitter. It would cost like many, many thousands of dollars per year to do, like $20-something thousand plus. The API access is very expensive now. It used to be free. So that, it was actually, you had more defense against cancellation under the old Twitter regime than you do now, which is crazy. But, so anyway, I got canceled a couple weeks ago, and so that's made me think about this again. But something else has happened in the last, 3-4 months that has made me think about my personal website in a way that I haven't for many years. So let's go to the homepage here. So what has happened? So, I've got my personal website. I've got a bunch of blog posts from years gone by, 150 of those or something like that. I don't know, quite a few. And so in September, the WordPress founder, Matt Mullenweg, attacked the largest business in the WordPress space called WP Engine, which is a hosting company. He attacked them, and they're now embroiled in a big lawsuit that's ongoing. And a lot of other stuff has happened since this news broke. But anyway, I did a post about this, and then I added a link to this post, and I have a bunch of videos that go along with this where I kind of explain what's going on and what I think is going to happen. And I added this little blurb to my homepage to, signal to visitors that, hey, this new thing is going on, go check this out. And so that's been going on. And I've been considering well, how does content work now? Content, like blogs are dead. For the most part, only people who are really well-renowned writers can get away with blogging as a thing. It's not really a thing anymore. Social media is the thing now. We post to platforms like X, maybe Facebook if you're still doing that kind of thing. But we do social media content now. We don't really do the blog posts. And what's unique about social media content is that it's shorter, it's chippier. And so something like this is just a little throwaway item that might be of interest to people who follow you or who keep up with your stuff, but these are clearly not they don't have the gravity of a blog post, okay? Like this is an article with videos in it, and I explain quite a bit, like this is a much bigger thing than just a basic social media post. This would have taken, took me, there's over an hour's worth of videos here. I mean, this is a lot of work to go into one thing. And so when there's that much work required to do a post, there's obviously going to be a lot fewer posts. Social media is kind of the opposite. You can just fire stuff off, and therefore we have tons of content. And so like my band Personified account had tons of content like this for 17 years, nearly 17 years of content, basically became inaccessible when I got canceled. So that really bums me out. But, if I had been able to post all of my content like this, in the manner that you see here, then I would have still had access to all that content and I wouldn't have lost it. I at least would have had it on my website and I wouldn't feel quite as bad about it as I do right now. But so, I'm just looking at this whole picture. What does this all mean? We like to do the shorter social media posts. Occasionally on social media, we will do a thread. Like I showed this earlier. So if you have a thread, it's a bunch of posts strung together to really expound upon a central theme or something like that. You really, go deep. It's more like a blog post than just a single social media post. And so this OmniTweet software that I built would automatically turn your threads into pages on your website, which is really cool. And then you can go in and add a special title here and change it obviously away from tweet thread 446. And you've got this whole, got a whole article here, and you could even add more content to the article if you wanted to expand upon it over time. That's super, super cool. But what's also interesting is that if you just do a blog post in WordPress, if you create a new post or page, that content automatically receives a URL endpoint. So what is a URL endpoint? It's something like this. This page, it's got you can't see the URL bar, but it has a custom URL associated with it, and you can go to that URL and pull up this content. That is what a URL endpoint is. If content has a URL endpoint, it can be accessed via the URL bar on in a browser. But we don't always want, I wouldn't want every social media post I ever made to have a URL endpoint, at least not on my website. I realize it works that way on Twitter, but I wouldn't want that on my own website. I think that's crazy. It's crazy, but it also, I look at the larger picture here. A lot of the content I make is just a throwaway joke, something like that. Some percentage of the content I do is just throwaway type content for a quick laugh, cheap laugh. I would not want to throw all that content into the world's search engines to be indexed. I would prefer to kind of keep it clean and not, 40% of my posts are throwaways. I'd like to keep that 40% out of the public register, so to speak, because it's less stuff to cull through and look through whenever you're looking for results on in search engines or stuff like that. It's just cleaner. We don't want all the cruft that we produce to be in the main pile. I've got legitimate content and then I've got this cruft. Let's leave the cruft out of it. So the way OmniTweet works is if you do a single post, it does not receive a URL endpoint. But the second you create a thread, it says, okay, well, this is obviously more important, and it receives the URL endpoint that can then be accessed, and then you can see all those tweets together in that article view. So this has a little functionality that lets you see what each individual tweet is. This is one tweet in the thread. Here's another tweet in the thread. And you could edit it if it hasn't been posted to Twitter, but anything that's been posted cannot be edited. But I can then click on this to view the entire thread on Twitter. We'll do that real quick. Oh, it's from my suspended account, so we can't view it. Really cool, huh? That's great. Anyway, that would have worked if I hadn't gotten banned. So anyway, that's how these thread pages work. These are really cool. I like the fact that I can, if this automatically knows that if I have created some content and made it a thread, that it's more significant, and then it receives its own URL endpoint. And then that is something I might probably want to be indexed in search engines over time. I might want it to be accessible via link on my website. That makes sense to me. And keep in mind, these single throwaways could still be accessible via a different type of like a query string on in the URL bar, like question mark tweet equals, and then like the ID of the tweet, and you could pull it up that way. But a true URL endpoint with like a clean URL, like pearsonified.com/this tweet thread, that's a proper URL endpoint. That's what the threads get, which is really cool. And that makes sense to me. And so I'll go back to a point I made earlier. I said, this WordPress stuff started blowing up in September. Matt Mullenweg started misbehaving. And then I put a post on my site, this one with the videos, and I wanted to link to it. So I did this link here. The other night I was thinking about getting canceled, and I was thinking about this content, and I was thinking like, well, it would sure be nice if I could like create all my content this way in OmniTweet style, not in the WordPress editor, but just in this editor. And then I could go through the content and just like mark something. Like I could create a piece of content that's, basically this link and say, hey, pin this to the homepage of my website, right? Because right now, if I go in and want to do stuff on my homepage, I can edit this homepage. Let's see if we can, we'll get the, I could go in here and edit all the stuff that's on here. I could edit the content that way. But this is actually, the way I run my homepage is pretty dynamic. And so not everything on the homepage is quite accessible through this. Like, for example, if I want to edit these cards, I have to go in to my page to figure out what the cards are. These are, certain cards with the group hot. So I'd go in here to my cards. Okay, this is one of them because it's the hot group. Go in here, I could edit that. And then that would be some of the content. That'd be the content of the golden ratio typography card. There's a focus card. I could do that. But then this thing is actually added to my homepage via custom PHP. So I actually have to go into my FTP client, pull up my custom PHP file, my master.php file for this site, and then go and like change the code to do this link, which is not great. Like most normie webmaster is not going to do this. I would do this. It's not that big a deal to me because I'm used to it. But it'd still be nice if I could just make this appear, like mark it and say, oh, pin this to my homepage, and then boom, this is how an item gets pinned to my homepage. It would be nice if I had like a set of links and say like, I could say, oh, add this to my main links on my homepage. Like I could create a new area here and say, okay, anything that's a hot link or something like this, a new link, anything I designate as that is going to show up here. And then it's just chronological within that little box from there. And then I could manage, I create my content here and then I'm managing it that way, presumably by like clicking on something and saying, oh, doing a couple options saying, oh, pin this to the homepage, add this to the hot links, something like that, right? Like OmniTweet doesn't do all that yet, but it could do that is what I'm saying. It could do something like that, and that could be how I run my site. And I mention all this because I'm saying I don't really want to run my site in terms of like the WordPress editor and having to go into all these different sections to edit stuff. Like I just want to run it like a social media feed. I really do. Like that's the only way I'm going to actually produce content. Like I produced most of the content on my personal website between like 2006 and 2010. I've barely done anything since then. Like this is like 20 articles here. This is all the stuff I've done since 2014. The post here is 2010. So is this one, I think. Yeah. So I've got like 22 articles on my website that I've done since 2010. Okay. In 14 years. So like, obviously I'm not doing very much this way. I'm not producing much content on my own website. I did OmniTweet stuff for like over a year, and so I've got a whole bunch of this, and like a bunch of these threads became pages. I haven't even organized all that stuff on this site yet, but like I did quite a bit of that, and that's honestly the most content I've done on the website in the last 15 years, was through this OmniTweet capability. So I'm just putting that out there. This is kind of my vision for maybe a different way to run. It could be a WordPress website, could be a not WordPress website, just any kind of personal website that you want to run kind of starts, we see the coalescence, like things coming together, like social media feeds work this way. Maybe your website needs to start looking a little bit more like that. If you want to like actively update it. It's sort of like the blog reimagined. Like the blog was too grandiose. Like every time I sit down to blog something, I'm using that editor. I'm thinking I need to like have like a significant amount of information. I need to convey a lot of serious stuff. I need to have like citations, maybe some supporting imagery or videos. I don't always want to do that. There's times, I mean, I do plenty of my social media posts on X at least. You know, I'll make a video and then post something about that. That's fine. I'll do that some, but I don't, you know, the blogging makes me feel like I have this extra pressure where like it has to be grandiose. Social media feed style content production removes that. For whatever reason, it takes that away because like the initial post is 280 characters or less, and that is sort of, that constraint is actually freeing mentally. So it's something to think about. Maybe this OmniTweet style, like imagine like you don't go into the WordPress editor anymore. You just fire off stuff like this, and then you choose where it goes. Like if it turns into a page, you know, if you make it a thread, that turns it into a page on your website, and then you can go into the thread and say, well, where do I want this linked? And you'd have predefined areas like on your homepage or elsewhere, or maybe some other page like, oh, here's my important content right now page. And then there's also you could also have another page that just lists all your stuff. Okay, here's all the threads you've made in reverse chronological order, and then you just go back through them over time. You can see like that'd be a different way to compile your content and then to access it or have it be discoverable on your website. To me, this represents a new way of creating content on your website and then managing that content. And, you know, it's fascinating. If you had that basis, like if that's the way your site worked, then you would only need to layer on a couple things, like maybe something like this card functionality to like make certain things that you have to present look like a thing. Like that's what cards really do. They make a thing look like a thing. This looks substantial. It's got a button on it. I can go learn more about it. And then you've also got the, you know, the other big ingredient is like email sign-up forms. But outside of that, I think you could pretty much do what you want to do or what you need to be able to do on your website through this OmniTweet-like functionality. So I'm thinking I'm going to remix this and release it as a, you know, just kind of a new way to run your websites. So I don't know, it's compelling to me, and I'm building a new platform that's going to be a replacement for WordPress. Not a direct replacement though. People hear that and they think, oh, well, it will do exactly all the stuff WordPress does. I'll just be able to do it on something that's not WordPress. It's not going to be the case. WordPress has a lot of stuff baked into it that needs to go, needs to be gone. And so the new platform I am building is not going to have any of that stuff in it. So it's not going to be a direct replacement. For example, the original release of this new thing is not going to have post capability. It's only going to have pages. Pages are the foundation of the internet. Even the idea behind posts is kind of a convolution of a very simple thing. So those need to go. So, you know, people are going to hear this and say, oh, what's going to happen to my posts if I try to use your platform? Going to have some way to convert them. All right, calm down. It's not like, nope, that content's going to be gone forever. That's just a stupid answer. No, people don't want to lose their stuff. I get it. I don't want to lose my stuff. I got a lot of posts. But, you know, the original platform as I release it is not going to have post capability. It's just going to be pages. So I'm just saying all that to say my new thing is not going to be a direct WordPress replacement, but I am thinking that one of the initial operating modes that I introduce with this new website platform may work something like I've kind of described here or tried to describe for you today. So fascinating stuff. There's different ways to run websites. This certainly, I don't know. This feels kind of right to me. I like it. The possibilities seem exciting, whereas a lot of the possibilities with normal websites kind of don't feel very exciting anymore. I think you might agree, especially if you build websites. So anyway, there it is. This was called OmniTweet. I don't know if the new one will be called OmniPost functionality. I don't know yet. But bottom line is, this is the kind of stuff I'm thinking about. I am building a lot of things along these lines right now. I've already built this thing, which is really substantial and really cool. If you're interested in this, I still have it, but you know, it's not super easy for you to get, and I don't actually like publicly sell it anymore, even though I kind of do. So if you're interested in that, hit me up in the comments and let me know, and you know, I'm willing to talk about it. And if you really want it, I can get it to you. But anyhow, that's that. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video, gang.